We'd like to go directly into our next session, which is our first panel discussion. And to chair the session, we have our Senior Vice President from IMANI, Mr. Kofi Bento, and he will take over from here. So for session one, the panel members, I think we missed Mr. Wisdom here, Taku Togobo from the Ministry of Energy, but we have our representative from OCP Policy Center, and she will be delivering a presentation to start the session.
So Africa's economy is growing at an unprecedented speed, and one of the core challenges as African countries continue to grow and develop is energy, specifically meeting the rising demand for power, transport, and other uses in a way that is economically sustainable. Before speaking about Africa's renewable energy challenges and the solution by which it can increase the use of the renewable in its energy mix, let me give you first a brief snapshot of Africa's energy outlook. I will start by giving some numbers regarding the current energy situation in 2017. As you can see from the graph, Africa's energy consumption has witnessed a steady growth in the past 2 decades. In 2017, it is the third fastest growth region in terms of energy consumption. It grew by approximately 2.9%, which is faster than the world average. However, its share in global energy consumption remains low at nearly 3%. Regional consumption remains heavily dominated by oil, which accounts for a little over 40%, followed by gas and coal. Hydro accounts for 6%, while nuclear and renewable combined only represent 2%. Power generation, on the other hand, increased by nearly 4%. Growth came largely, as you can see from the graph, from natural gas and hydro, while oil-fired generation declined. Non-fossil fuel accounted for a little over 20% of the total generation in Africa. Looking at the renewable more specifically, although the share in Africa's energy consumption is low, they have witnessed an important growth as shown in the upper graph, particularly since 2014. They grew indeed by 7% in 2017 and almost by 18% in 2006. Solar in particular has grown the fastest during the same period. However, this growth is concentrated in a limited numbers of countries in Africa. The top countries for cumulative non-hydropower renewable capacity were South Africa, Egypt, and Kenya. In terms of energy installed capacity in both solar and wind, South Africa is ranked first, although you can see it in the first graph. For visibility issues, I started with the second-ranked countries, otherwise the bars would be invisible. For solar, Algeria and Morocco are ranked second and third with installed capacity of 600 megawatt combined, whereas for wind, Morocco and Egypt are the second and third. So there is no doubt that abundant fossil and renewable energy resources are available all across Africa, with rapid economic growth, increasing population, but also with changing of lifestyles and the need for reliable, modern energy access. The continent's energy demand is set to double by 2040, and its share in global consumption will likely increase to reach 6%. Also, the use of renewable is expected to increase by 13% according to the numbers of BP. Electricity demand would triple by 2030, offering huge potential for renewable energy deployment. And realizing this opportunity will create significant business in Africa. So to achieve these opportunities, Africa needs to address several challenges that are specific to the renewable sector. Overall, one of the main challenges is Africa is facing is access to energy generally. More specifically, it suffers from low electrification rates compared to other regions of the world. So the graph here shows some numbers regarding population and access to electricity by region. The picture is not completely dark, however. Access to electricity, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, has improved throughout the years. It has increased from 23% in the year 2000 to 42% in 2016, and this number climbs up to 51% when taking into consideration North Africa. Indeed, the pace of electrification have almost tripled during this period, and in 2014, electrification efforts surpassed population growth for the first time. Yet, nearly 600 million people still do not have access to energy, making it the largest concentration of people in the world without access to electricity. So these contrasting trends reflect the two-speed growth that the continent is facing in the energy sector. So with the important untapped potential that the African continent has in terms of renewable resources, renewable is seen as an opportunity to close this electrification gap. So the question now is what issues need to be addressed in order for the continent to take advantage of the wealth of clean energy resources. So the first challenge is policy, regulatory, and institutional frameworks. Policy and regulatory framework are essential for the dissemination of renewable energy technology in Africa, yet there is a lack of substantial, consistent, and conducive renewable energy and regulation to create a safe ground for private and industrial sector to operate effectively and expand their investment in the development and use of renewable energy. Also, despite the importance of the energy sector to the economic and social development, majority of renewable energy projects are externally financed, and in some cases, despite the existence of suitable policies for promoting renewable energies, their impact is weakened by lack of enforcement mechanism. The second challenge is information and technical capacity, which is another major challenge faced by on the deployment of renewable energy in Africa, is the lack of know-how and inadequacy of sophisticated instruments of collection of energy data. Indeed, Africa relied on already made data collected from the developed nations, which are mostly not accurate. Some selected countries with the data on solar, wind, geothermal, hydro, and land lack the links such as space satellites to disseminate the information to the world. More so, the lack of advanced technical skills in the continent affects the sustainable development of renewable energy technology. Hence, there is a need for high and middle level technical manpower in business development, manufacturing, and overall management of renewable energy technology. Also, the renewable energy sector lacks for local technical skills required for operation and maintenance. Another challenge is financing and investments. So the African Development Bank has estimated at $547 billion as the total investment required to implement its scenarios of universal access of reliable and increasingly cleaner power in Africa by 2030. Yet, total funding to the energy sector in sub-Saharan Africa particularly has averaged only about $2 billion a year. Therefore, the energy sector in general faces serious challenges with respect to mobilizing finance. Due to weak government support, the private sector, banks, and lending facilities are not yet interested in enhancing their investments in renewable energy sector. Cost of renewable is also a challenge. It is important to acknowledge that Africa is rich in fossil fuel reserves and already has an existing fossil-based energy sector. Therefore, vested interest in established business model and the cost of moving towards a renewable energy may suggest a reluctance to change. And finally, the last challenge that I'll be talking about is reliability of renewables. In addition, indeed, the the unreliability of renewable energy sources must be considered. Ultimately, factors such as wind speed and cloud cover are uncontrollable, and rapid changes in weather can cause electricity production to falter. So designing and implementing solutions to address these challenges will not be an easy task, as there is no ready-to-go solution. However, possible solutions included in related literature highlight the following. So African governments should endeavor to ensure approval of a harmonized renewable energy policy in order to make of the renewable energy not only a national objective but also a regional one. Another solution would be to facilitate partnerships between the local energy institutions and international donors agency, international finance institution, and development partners in order to raise funds for research and development. Also, microfinance institutions and facilities should be put in place to empower rural dwellers to establish small-scale energy service companies based on renewable energy sources and technology. And finally, investment in vocational studies will help tackle the lack of capacity deficit. Indeed, the number of engineers who can build infrastructures and technicians who can maintain it will therefore increase. In addition, these investments will also help create more employment opportunities for these young people and empower them to make positive contribution to society. So thank you for your attention.